Her family sold her for a sack of grain, but the rancher who took her saw her real worth. She was born in a small farming village where the land decided everything. When the rains came on time, people smiled more. When the rains failed, silence filled the houses. That year, the rain did not come at all. The fields cracked open like dry skin, and the crops never grew tall enough to harvest. Every morning, she woke to the sound of her parents whispering, counting what little they had left, arguing softly so the children would not hear. She was the second oldest, old enough to understand hunger but young enough to still hope it would pass. At night, she lay awake listening to her younger siblings breathe, their stomachs empty, their bodies thin. Her mother tried to stretch meals by adding more water to the pot. Her father left before sunrise to look for work that did not exist. Each day ended the same way, with tired eyes and unanswered prayers. In their village, people did not talk openly about desperation. It showed itself in quiet ways. Animals were sold one by one. Tools disappeared from homes. Families moved away without saying goodbye. She noticed these things even when others pretended not to. She felt it when her parents stopped looking at her for too long, as if holding her gaze would force them to admit something they were not ready to say. One afternoon, a stranger arrived on horseback. He was a rancher from the other side of the valley, known for having land that still produced food. His clothes were dusty but clean. His horse was strong. People gathered to watch him speak with village elders. No one smiled. Conversations like this never brought good news. That evening, her parents sat her down near the cooking fire. The flames were low because firewood was scarce. Her mother's hands shook as she spoke. Her father stared at the ground. They told her she would be going to work for the rancher for a while. They said it was an opportunity, that she would be fed, that she would be safe. They said the family would receive grain in return, enough to keep everyone alive until the next season. She waited for them to ask her what she thought. They never did. At first, she did not fully understand. She asked when she would come home. Her mother said soon, but her voice did not sound sure. Her father said this was the only way. No one used the word sold, but she felt it sitting between them like a heavy stone. Her life had been weighed against a sack of grain, and the grain had won. That night she cried quietly so her siblings would not hear. She was not angry yet. She was confused. She wondered what she had done wrong. Had she eaten too much? Had she been a burden? Children often blame themselves for adult choices, and she was no different. The next morning came too quickly. The rancher returned with a mule carrying the promised grain. Her parents did not look at it directly, but she did. The sack was large, rough, and heavy. It was real. It would fill empty bowls. That knowledge hurt more than anything else. It meant the trade mattered. She packed what little she owned, one dress, worn shoes, and a cloth her grandmother had given her. When she stepped outside, her siblings clung to her, asking when she would be back. She told them she did not know. Her mother hugged her tightly but said very little. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and final, as if that touch could explain everything words could not. As she climbed onto the mule behind the rancher, she looked back at her home. The walls were cracked. The roof sagged. Still, it was the only place she had ever belonged. The door closed behind her, and she realized something important had ended, even if she did not yet know what would come next. The journey to the ranch took most of the day. The land slowly changed as they traveled. The soil darkened, trees appeared, streams ran thin but steady. She watched in silence, holding onto her dress as the mule walked forward. The rancher did not speak much. When he did, his voice was calm, not unkind. He told her where they were going and how long it would take. He did not ask questions about her past, and she was grateful for that. Still, fear followed her like a shadow. She had heard stories about places like this, whispered by other girls. She did not know what would be expected of her. She told herself to be strong, to do whatever work was given, to survive. That was all she thought she was good for now. When they arrived, the ranch was larger than anything she had seen before. There were fences stretching far into the distance, animals grazing, and buildings that looked sturdy and solid. It was not beautiful in a soft way, but it was alive. Food grew here. Life continued here. The rancher showed her a small room near the main house. It had a bed, a blanket, and a basin for washing. "You'll stay here," he said simply. "You work hard, you eat well, that's the agreement." His words were clear, almost businesslike, but there was no threat in them. That night she ate a full meal for the first time in months. Her body reacted before her heart could. She ate slowly, afraid it might disappear if she rushed. As she lay down to sleep, her stomach full, guilt twisted inside her. Somewhere far away, her family would eat too. The grain would do its job. She wondered if that was all she was meant to be, something traded so others could go on. Sleep did not come easily. She stared at the ceiling, listening to unfamiliar sounds. She missed the noise of her siblings, even their crying. She missed her mother's quiet movements in the kitchen. She felt alone in a way she had never felt before. This was not just leaving home. This was being removed. In the days that followed, she learned the rhythm of the ranch. She rose early, worked until the sun was high, rested briefly, then worked again. The labor was hard but not cruel. No one shouted at her. No one struck her. Still, she kept her head down, afraid that one mistake would send her back, or worse, somewhere unknown. She noticed the rancher watching her from time to time, not closely, not constantly, but enough that she felt seen. It made her nervous. She had learned that being noticed often led to trouble, so she worked harder, trying to prove she was worth what had been paid. Inside, though, something fragile was forming. A quiet question she was afraid to ask. What if this place was not meant to break her? What if her life was not over, just changed? She pushed the thought away. Hope felt dangerous. Hope had failed her before. For now, she told herself, she was just surviving. Just a girl traded for grain, trying to stay invisible in a world that had already decided her price. But even in her fear, something within her refused to disappear. She still noticed details, the way the animals responded to gentle hands, the way the land healed when cared for. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that value could be more than survival. She did not yet believe it. Not yet. The days on the ranch began to settle into a steady pattern, though nothing felt truly settled inside her. Every morning before the sun rose fully, she woke to the sound of animals moving and distant footsteps. The air was cool and smelled of earth and hay. She washed her face, tied her hair back, and stepped outside, already preparing herself for a long day. Work came quickly. There were animals to feed, water to carry, fences to check, and tools to clean. At first, her hands ached badly. Blisters formed, broke, and hardened. Her back hurt at night, and her legs felt heavy by the end of each day. Still, she did not complain. She believed silence was safer than questions. What surprised her most was how clear everything was. Tasks were explained once, sometimes twice, and then she was trusted to do them. No one hovered over her. No one mocked her mistakes. When she did something wrong, she was corrected calmly and shown how to fix it. This was new. At home, mistakes often came with sharp words or disappointment. Here, they were treated as part of learning. The rancher remained a quiet presence. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were direct. He expected effort, not perfection. She noticed that he treated everyone the same way, whether they had been there for years or only a short time. That fairness confused her. She was used to being treated as less, as someone who owed more than others. At meals, she sat with the other workers. At first, she barely spoke. She listened instead, learning names, routines, and small stories. The others did not ask about her past. They talked about the weather, the animals, and the work ahead. Slowly, the tension in her shoulders eased. She was still cautious, but she no longer felt completely invisible. Food was regular here. That alone changed her. She no longer felt dizzy by midday. Her thoughts became clearer. She had more energy, more strength. Sometimes, while working, she caught herself humming softly. Each time she stopped, surprised by the sound. It felt wrong to feel light inside after everything that had happened. At night, she returned to her small room. It was simple, but it was hers. She began to keep it tidy, folding her clothes carefully, wiping dust from the shelf. These small acts made her feel grounded, as if she had some control over her life again. She still missed her family, but the sharp pain slowly became a dull ache. One afternoon, the rancher asked her to help with the animals more closely. He showed her how to notice signs of illness, how to move calmly so the animals would not panic. He watched as she followed his instructions carefully. When she did well, he nodded once. That small gesture meant more to her than praise ever had. She realized then that he was paying attention, not in a way that made her afraid, but in a way that measured effort and care. He noticed that she learned quickly, that she did not rush through tasks, that she treated the animals gently. She did not know why this mattered, but she felt something shift between them. She was no longer just extra hands. Still, fear did not disappear easily. Every time she heard raised voices, even if they were not angry, her heart raced. Every time she made a mistake, she waited for consequences that never came. Part of her believed this calm was temporary, that kindness always came with a hidden cost. One day, a delivery arrived late, causing delays across the ranch. Tension spread among the workers. She worked harder than usual, trying to keep everything moving. In her rush, she dropped a bucket, spilling water across the ground. The sound echoed loudly. She froze, expecting anger. Instead, the rancher helped her lift the bucket and refill it. "Slow down," he said. "Rushing causes more trouble than mistakes." His voice was steady, not sharp. She nodded, unable to speak. Something warm rose in her chest, followed by a sudden sting in her eyes. She turned away quickly so no one would notice. That night she cried quietly, not from sadness, but from confusion. She did not understand how a place that had taken her so easily could also give her space to breathe. She wondered if her family would recognize her now, stronger, steadier, quieter in a different way. As weeks passed, she became more confident in her movements. She learned the land, the paths, the moods of the animals. She learned when to speak and when to listen. Others began to rely on her, asking for help, trusting her judgment. This made her nervous at first, but also proud. She began to see herself differently, not as something traded, but as someone capable. The thought felt dangerous, almost disloyal to her past. She reminded herself often that she was here because of need, not choice. Yet her heart did not fully accept that anymore. Sometimes she caught the rancher watching her work from a distance. His expression was thoughtful, not critical. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her. Did he see a worker who earned her place? Or did he see the scared girl who had arrived with nothing? One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned soft with color, she stood quietly by the fence, resting. The land looked peaceful, almost forgiving. For the first time since leaving home, she allowed herself to imagine a future that was not defined only by hunger. That thought frightened her more than anything else. Because hope, once it begins to grow, asks for courage. And courage was something she was only just beginning to learn. By the time the season began to change, she no longer counted the days since she had arrived at the ranch. Time moved differently now. It was marked by tasks finished, animals growing stronger, and fields slowly responding to care. Her body had changed too. She stood straighter. Her hands were firm and steady. The tiredness she felt at night was honest, earned, not the heavy weakness of hunger. Still, something uneasy stayed inside her. No matter how well things went, she waited for it to end. She believed good things never lasted long for people like her. Somewhere a line existed, and she feared she would cross it without knowing. That fear found its moment one afternoon when everything went wrong. The day began like any other. The air was warm, and the animals were restless. A fence near the far edge of the ranch had been damaged overnight, likely by wandering animals. The rancher sent her and another worker to fix it before more animals escaped. She listened carefully to instructions and carried the tools without complaint. As they worked, the sun climbed higher. Sweat ran into her eyes, but she kept going. She wanted to prove she could handle responsibility. While tightening one of the posts, she misjudged the pressure. The old wood cracked. The fence leaned, then collapsed completely, allowing several animals to move away toward open land. The sound was loud, too loud. Her heart dropped, panic rushed through her body. She ran forward trying to stop the animals, shouting for help. Other workers came quickly. Together they managed to guide the animals back, but the damage was done. Time had been lost. Supplies were wasted. The fence needed full replacement. She stood back, breathing hard, hands shaking. The world felt small and tight around her. In her mind, she was no longer at the ranch. She was back in her village, watching her parents look away as decisions were made without her. She was the mistake, the burden, the cost. She did not wait to be spoken to. That fear told her waiting was dangerous. That evening she packed her few belongings. Her hands moved quickly, almost without thought. She told herself it was better to leave on her own than be sent away in shame. She believed the rancher would regret taking her, that the calm she had known would vanish the moment she proved imperfect. No one stopped her as she moved quietly across the yard. The sky was darkening and the air felt heavy. She reached the edge of the property before a voice called her name. It was the rancher. She froze. He walked toward her, not rushed, not angry. That confused her even more. She waited for sharp words, for blame, for disappointment that would seal her fate. Instead, he asked, "Where are you going?" Her voice came out small. She said she had caused trouble. She said she understood if he no longer wanted her there. She said it was her fault and that she would leave before causing more harm. For a moment he said nothing. He looked past her toward the fence in the distance, then back at her. "Mistakes happen," he said. "You tried to fix a problem, that matters." She shook her head, unable to accept it. Her chest felt tight. "I break things," she said quietly. "That's what I do." He frowned, not in anger, but in thought. "That's not true," he said. "You work hard, you care. One broken fence doesn't erase that." Her eyes filled, and she hated herself for it. She had promised not to cry here. She believed tears would weaken her position. But they came anyway, silent and heavy. He did something unexpected. He took responsibility for the mistake in front of the others the next morning. He explained that the fence was old, that the job required more support than he had planned. He did not mention her name at all. She stood among the workers, stunned. She had never seen an adult do that for her before. At home, blame always moved downward, never upward. This moment shook something deep inside her. Still, the fear did not disappear right away. It turned inward instead. That night, alone in her room, she questioned herself. Why did this kindness feel harder to accept than anger? Why did safety make her feel so exposed? The next few days were quiet. The ranch continued its work. No one treated her differently. No one whispered. But inside her, a battle was happening. Part of her wanted to trust, to believe she was not just tolerated but valued. Another part warned her that trust could be taken away. The breaking point came when a message arrived from her village. A trader passing through brought news. Her family was struggling again. The grain had helped, but only for a time. The drought had continued longer than expected. There were hints, not spoken clearly, that more might be expected of her if things worsened. The old weight returned instantly. Her stomach tightened. She felt pulled backward, as if her past had reached out and grabbed her by the ankle. No matter how far she walked, it seemed she was still tied to that first trade. She went to the edge of the ranch that evening, sitting alone, staring at the land. She felt torn between two truths. One said she owed everything to her family, no matter the cost. The other said she had begun to build something here, something fragile but real. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel anger, not loud, not explosive, but steady. Anger at being measured only by what she could give. Anger at never being asked what she wanted. Anger at believing she had no right to choose. The rancher found her there later. He did not ask questions right away. He sat at a distance, respecting her silence. When she finally spoke, she told him about the message, about the fear of being traded again, even in a different form. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he said something that changed everything. "You are not owned," he said. "You work here, that's all. No one gets to decide your future but you." The words felt unreal. She repeated them silently, testing them. Not owned, not traded, not borrowed. That night she did not sleep much. But for the first time, her thoughts were not filled only with fear. They were filled with questions. Who was she if not a burden? What could her life become if her worth was not measured by survival alone? She did not have answers yet. But something inside her had cracked open, like dry ground finally touched by rain. After that night, something slowly began to change in her, though it was not sudden or dramatic. It was quiet, like a small shift in the ground that only she could feel at first. She still woke early and worked hard, but her thoughts no longer circled only around fear. There was a new awareness growing inside her, a sense that her life might belong to her more than she had ever believed. The rancher began giving her different kinds of work. At first, she did not notice the change. He asked her to help count supplies, to track feed usage, and to note when animals needed extra care. These were small tasks, but they required attention and trust. She took them seriously, writing carefully, checking twice to avoid mistakes. Each time she handed him her notes, he read them fully, sometimes asking questions. He listened to her answers. That alone felt important. She realized that he was not just teaching her how to work, but how to think ahead. He explained why certain choices mattered, how planning saved effort later, how patience often prevented loss. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. At home, survival had left no room for planning. You dealt with the day in front of you and hoped for the best. Here, she was learning to look further. With these new responsibilities came wages. The first time he handed her the payment, she stared at it in her palm for a long moment. The money felt heavier than it should have. It was proof of something she had never experienced before, earning for herself. Not as part of a trade, not as a sacrifice, but as recognition of her work. She did not spend it right away. She hid it carefully, counting it often, unsure why it mattered so much. The idea that she could save, that she could choose how to use it, filled her with both excitement and fear. Choice was unfamiliar. Choice meant responsibility. The other workers noticed the changes too. They began asking her opinion more often, trusting her judgment with animals and schedules. She spoke carefully at first, afraid of saying the wrong thing. But when her suggestions worked, confidence followed. Slowly, her voice became steadier. Her body changed as well, not just in strength, but in how she carried herself. She no longer shrank when spoken to. She looked people in the eye. These changes were small, but together they made her feel like a different person than the girl who had arrived with only a bundle of clothes and quiet fear. News from her family continued to come, carried by travelers or neighbors. Sometimes the messages were simple updates. Other times they carried an unspoken question. Could she help again? Could she send something back? At first, guilt rose quickly. Her family was still struggling. The drought had not fully ended. She remembered empty bowls, thin faces, long nights of worry. Part of her wanted to give everything she had to ease their pain no matter the cost. But now another part of her spoke up. She began sending small amounts, enough to help but not enough to erase herself. Each time she felt torn. Helping felt right. Losing herself again did not. The balance was difficult, and some nights she cried quietly, wishing choices did not hurt this much. One afternoon, her family arrived unexpectedly at the edge of the ranch. She recognized them immediately, even before they spoke. They looked thinner, older. Her mother's eyes filled with tears when she saw her. Her siblings clung to her just as they had the day she left. The past rushed back all at once, heavy and familiar. They spoke softly, carefully. They thanked her for the help she had sent. They spoke of hard days and missed rains. There was relief in their voices, but also something else. Expectation. She listened without interrupting. Her heart ached for them. But when her father spoke of needing more, of how she was strong now, capable, she felt something settle firmly inside her. She did not raise her voice. She did not accuse them. She spoke calmly, choosing her words with care. She said she would help when she could, but she would not be traded again. She said her work mattered, her future mattered, and she would not disappear into survival once more. The silence that followed was heavy. Her mother looked at her with a mix of pride and pain. Her father looked away, much as he had before. This time, though, she did not feel small. She felt sad but steady. When they left, she watched them go with tears in her eyes, knowing this moment had changed something forever. She had not rejected them. She had set a boundary. That difference mattered. Back at the ranch, life continued. The rancher did not ask what had been said. He only told her she had handled herself well. That simple statement settled deeply inside her. Days passed, then weeks. She continued learning, growing, saving. She began to imagine what else she might do one day. Perhaps manage part of the ranch. Perhaps learn more skills. Perhaps leave and build something of her own. These thoughts no longer felt forbidden. One evening, as she walked through the fields at sunset, she realized something important. She was no longer measuring her worth by what she could give away. She was measuring it by what she could build, protect, and grow. The girl who had once believed she was only a burden was gone. In her place stood someone who understood struggle but was no longer owned by it. Someone who knew pain but did not let it decide her future. She did not know exactly where her path would lead. But for the first time in her life, it felt like her own. The final season she spent on the ranch did not arrive with loud signs or clear endings. It came quietly, the way real change often does. The land was greener now. Rain had returned in gentle patterns, not enough to erase the past, but enough to promise continuity. The animals were healthy. The work was steady, and she was no longer counting days or waiting for something to be taken away. She had grown into her role without realizing it. People came to her with questions before they went to anyone else. She knew the rhythm of the place, the needs of the land, the balance between effort and rest. She no longer felt like a guest or a borrowed pair of hands. She felt rooted. The rancher noticed this too. One evening after a long day, he spoke to her about the future. He did not tell her what to do. He asked her what she wanted. The question stopped her cold. No one had asked her that so directly before, not her parents, not fate, not hunger. She took time to answer. She said she wanted to keep learning. She wanted stability but not dependence. She wanted to know that wherever she went next, it would be because she chose it. The rancher nodded, as if he had expected nothing less. He told her the ranch would always have a place for her, but it would never be a cage. That night, she thought about everything she had survived. The dry fields of her childhood, the quiet agreement made without her voice, the fear that followed her into sleep. She also thought about what she had gained: skills, confidence, the understanding that kindness could exist without debt. Weeks later, she made her decision. She chose to leave, not because she had to, but because she was ready. It was not an escape, it was a step forward. She planned carefully, using the money she had saved. She arranged work in a nearby town where her skills were needed. She packed more than she had arrived with, not just in belongings, but in certainty. When the day came, there were no tears of fear. Only gratitude, quiet and deep. Before she left, she visited her family one last time. The village looked much the same, but she did not. Her siblings ran to her, laughing. Her mother held her for a long time, saying nothing. Her father listened as she spoke, not as a child seeking approval, but as an adult setting terms. She offered help when she could. She offered connection. She did not offer herself as a solution. This time, the trade did not happen. When she walked away from the village, she felt the weight lift fully from her chest. The past would always be part of her, but it no longer owned her future. In the town, life was different. Louder, faster, hard in new ways, but she met challenges with a steady heart. She worked, learned, and slowly built a life that was her own. People respected her not because of pity, but because of consistency. She did what she said she would do. That reputation carried her further than fear ever had. Sometimes she thought about the girl she used to be. The one who believed her worth could be measured in food. She did not judge her, she honored her. That girl had survived so this woman could live. Years later, when she returned to the ranch to visit, the land welcomed her like an old friend. The rancher greeted her with the same calm respect as always. Nothing dramatic was said. It did not need to be. They both knew what had been built there was more than work. It was proof. As she walked the fields, she understood the truth fully at last. She had never been saved. She had been seen for her effort, seen for her ability, seen for her humanity. And once she learned to see herself the same way, nothing could take that from her. Her story did not end with rescue or reward. It ended with something quieter, stronger, and more real: choice. And that made all the difference.